Hi. Continuing on my series about public speaking, in this video I'm going to be talking about part 2 of the body of my speech entitled On Being a Toastmaster. Now, in this video, I think you're going to be interested because I encountered a problem when I first delivered this speech, and then I'm going to show you in this clip how I overcame that problem, what technique I used to overcome it. So stay tuned and I'll be back. Okay, before I begin, let me repeat that this is not a rehearsed video. I'm going to be talking off the cuff. Now, I'm going to be showing you little parts, of the clip, of the section, and I'm going to be talking about it. Did I use any technique? Why I used them? And maybe, hopefully, give you some tips on what you can, if you can use it yourself. Okay, so let's get into the speech and let's start talking about it. And once I got going, I ran like the wind. By September of 2005, I had delivered my 8th speech. And if I continued at the same pace, I could have become a competent Toastmaster by the end of the year. Okay. Well, that part about, running like the wind is, well, it's not really that true. But compared to what happened to me earlier, remember in my previous video I said that it took me more than a year before I delivered my first speech, right? I joined Toastmasters in September of 2003 and I delivered my first speech in January of 2005. And compare that to when I started delivering speeches. By September, I had already delivered 8 speeches. So compared to that, I was running like the wind. But maybe for some people, that doesn't sound like it. But anyway, now, I have encountered several Toastmasters, right? They're new, and they sometimes some of them tell me that, Eric, I want to achieve that competent Toastmaster norm in 5 to 6 months. I want to deliver 2 speeches per month. So he or she would deliver, say, a speech every 2 weeks or so. Now, I would usually tell them that, well, that's not really the goal. The goal is to learn. The goal is not to achieve those norms. Those norms are just labels, right? You can go and deliver 10 speeches, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 in quick succession. But if you don't learn the techniques that you need to use to become a good speaker, then achieving that goal of becoming a competent Toastmaster didn't really help you. So what I usually do is I write the speech, then I edit it, right? I add things, I remove things. And then when I'm satisfied with it, when I think that I won't go over time with this speech, I start memorizing it, then I practice. Now, it usually takes me about a month or 2 before I'm comfortable with the speech. So, 8 speeches in 9 months is about par for the course, so to speak. Now, if your intention is you want to go fast. Now, I'm not saying that it's bad, because I know some people who they they delivered speeches one after the other, but their speeches were really quite well. I mean, I'm not saying that there aren't any people who can do it. There are, but usually they're in the minority. So if you want to develop into a good speaker, listen to your evaluators, listen to other speakers. If you say that, hey, I like that, I'm going to incorporate that into my own speeches. Or if you hear the evaluators tell the speaker that this is what my suggestion is for you, and you can tell yourself, yeah, I think that would work for me too. So, yeah. Learn all these things and incorporate them into your speeches, and learn and memorize your speech. And not just memorize, but internalize. By internalize, I mean that you are speaking from the heart. You're not speaking just like as if you're reading your speech. Anyone can do that. But if you're speaking like you're really passionate about what you're saying, then that's when you have internalized your speech. Okay. So in this particular clip, I said that, yeah, I delivered my 8th speech by September, and in 2 months, or no, 3 months, September, October, November, December, I could become a competent Toastmaster because I only needed 2 more speeches. Now, this is what happened after that. But I didn't. I stopped. Why? Not because of fear. Fear was no longer a factor. I had conquered my fear. Okay, that's what happened. After my 8th speech, I stopped delivering speeches. Now, why is that? Well, as I said, it wasn't because of fear. And the reason I'm going to say next will surprise, well, maybe not surprise, some of the other Toastmasters. Let me show you. And, oh, by the way, this next part is the problem that I was talking about. Let's hear it. The problem was, well, you see, I had all the skills, or most of the skills of a good speaker already. And I was delivering pretty good speeches. Well, at least that's what my evaluator said. Now, listen to this. That part of the speech was not part of the original speech. Why is it there? At that point, when I said, the problem was, you remember I looked up to the ceiling, and then, I paused for a moment. At that point, I forgot the next line. Now, I have seen this happen to other Toastmasters, and it is terrible. It is so frightening, so embarrassing that, yeah, I know how they feel because it has happened to me. But the only difference between me and them is that when they forget the next line, they stop, and then they struggle to try and remember what the next line is. Whereas what I do is, if I forget the next line, I ad-lib. I start talking, well, not nonsense, but at least seems to be still related to the speech, to the topic of the speech, and I try to talk until I remember what comes next. That's what I did. Now, this is also the reason why I target the minimum time. Each speech has a minimum and a maximum time. For speech number 10, it's 8 to 10 minutes. So when I wrote the speech, I targeted 8 minutes. precisely because, well, not just precisely because of this one. When I deliver a speech and then I deliver a joke and people laugh, or I say something that the audience really likes and they start applauding, and if I forget the next line, that will extend the speech by several seconds. Now, if I targeted 10 minutes and I forget something, or somebody, or the audience laughs or applauds, and I have to wait for them to stop, then I will go overtime. Now, usually we have 30 seconds of allowable overtime, but I don't want to do that. I always target the minimum time so that if something happens, if I extend a little bit, I won't exceed my time limit. So that's one technique, target the minimum time. And then the second technique is, if you forget the next line, just ad-lib until you remember what comes next. And this one is what comes next. The problem was, I was delivering speeches only in front of other Toastmasters. I had never delivered a speech for anyone else. Yeah, that's what happened to me. Now, why should it bother you? I mean, why should that be a problem? Well, I can't tell you why. Because at that time it seemed like a problem for me. And I'm not alone, because the first time I delivered this, and also during the second time that I delivered it, I had people come up to me and said, that thought occurred to me as well. Maybe it didn't bother them too much, or maybe it bothered them as much as it did me, I don't know, but yeah, that was the problem. I was delivering speeches only in front of other Toastmasters. Nobody else had ever heard me deliver a speech. Let's keep going. Now this bothered me. If my being in Toastmasters was just for Toastmasters, then what was the point of my being here? To tell you the truth, it bothered me enough that I considered quitting. Yeah. I couldn't see the point of being in Toastmasters if all of my speeches was meant just for Toastmasters. I mean, at the time, I couldn't see myself delivering speeches for other people. I mean, I didn't expect someone to come up to me and say, Eric, your old elementary school or your old high school is going to have its graduation. Could you be a speaker, the keynote speaker? And I couldn't see people doing that. I couldn't see people asking me, Eric, we're going to have an occasion, we're going to have a convention. Could you please be the keynote speaker or whatever? And I couldn't see myself doing that. I couldn't even think that people would ask me to do that. I didn't think that I was that good a speaker. So, yeah, I was delivering speeches, but only for Toastmasters. Now, most Toastmasters probably didn't think too much of this. They probably already knew why they were there. I didn't, and I don't know why. I can't tell you why. But later on in another video, I'm going to tell you what I discovered. But let's keep going. But I didn't quit. Something in the back of my mind told me that I should wait. So I waited. 2005 ended, no speech. 2006 began, still no speech. Okay, this is the end of part 2, because part 3 has a different story. But yeah, I stopped delivering speeches after number 8, and for the next 3 months, yeah, October, November, then December, 2005 ended, 2006 began. I was still not, I wasn't delivering any speeches yet, although I was still attending meetings. I would go to the meeting, I would listen to others deliver their speeches, and I still learn because when they delivered a speech and I would listen and I tell myself, that's a good technique to use. I'm going to use that in my own speeches. Or if their evaluators say something, right? Your speech was nice, but I advise or I give you, may I suggest, may I suggest that you do this or you don't do this. That is one of the things that evaluators do. And I listen to the evaluators. Even though I'm not the speaker that's being evaluated, I listen to the evaluators because it may also apply to me. And anything that they say, I put it into my head, okay? I would consider that and maybe use that in my own speeches. So even though I wasn't delivering speeches, I was still learning. Now, yeah, I stopped delivering speeches, but not for long. So in the next video, I'm going to tell you what happened that, convinced me that I should continue. Now, the third third part is going to be a little longer. This is just a short one. That's going to be a little longer because, the story that happened, the event that happened after this part where I stopped delivering speeches is where I discovered why I had joined Toastmasters. So stay tuned for that. I'll be seeing you in the next video. Stay safe and God bless.